G'day divers and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I want to go through how I use clarity zoom, not just in video, but also in photography mode on the AcePro 2, because I get lots and lots of people sending me messages asking how I manage to get a 2x photo while still having access to the other presets. If you're new to my channel, I'm Sean Elliott and I've been doing underwater videography and photography for over 25 years. This channel is all about using action cameras and smartphones paired with economical aftermarket accessories to get some great underwater images. I want to show you that you do not need to spend a fortune or carry around kilos and kilos of equipment to get some great underwater shots. If you want to know how you can use your smartphone or action camera to get shots like these, then please like and subscribe to my channel. So the reason I want to make this video is I get lots of people that ask me how do I get to clarity zoom for photography and videography when I'm underwater, because unfortunately Insta360 still hasn't fixed the firmware. So, you know, we've got a couple of firmware issues in here. They still need to fix that you can't switch underwater mode on or off underwater. They need to fix clarity zoom. You know, in videography it's bearable, but I still don't think I like the fact that I've got to be recording to zoom in and out. Just means a lot of wasted editing, to be honest. And photography, it's basically impossible unless you go through the steps that I'm going to tell you. And it's not perfect because, you know, it requires you to leave your camera on at all times, and that chews battery, which is a problem when we're underwater because we can't be changing batteries underwater, but it will get you through a dive. So, you know, they're very easy things that, you know, they say they're going to update the firmware to fix them. I got no doubt they will. It's just taking a lot longer than I sort of expected, which is why I hadn't made this video. I'm sort of doing this to probably jinx it, because no doubt I'll make this video and tomorrow they'll update the firmware and it'll be pointless. But this camera is basically a year old and they haven't done it yet, so who knows when they will do it. It's a pretty easy step. All they're going to do is change the firmware and the way it acts. You know, don't get me wrong, diving and macro, it's really for macro videography and photography of scuba divers. There ain't too many users of action cameras that fit that criteria, so they got far more important things to be updating cameras for than, you know, me wanting easy access to taking a macro photograph. I get that, and when you have access to the screen, it works really, really well. It's just once we put it in the housing, we have limitations on how we can go about accessing clarity zoom and changing presets, and they sort of clash a bit with the current way the user interface is. So I'm going to set up the camera. I'm going to zoom in on the screen and I'll go through the steps and I'll show you what option you have to be able to access a 2x clarity zoomed photograph while still being able to then go to video or pure video or a 50 megapixel photograph and swap between and come back and still be able to do 1 and 2x video and 1 and 2x photography all on the same dive. And then hopefully soon this will be changed and we'll be able to do it easily inside the user interface.
So as you can see, I can switch it on so I can change that the power button does clarity zoom, and that's fine. I can take a 12.5 megapixel at 2x, I can change it to 1x, but because I've changed the power button or the mode button to the clarity zoom, I can now do nothing else. I cannot change presets, I can't do anything else underwater, and if I'm unlucky enough, say I've left it on 50 megapixels, I haven't even got it as an option. Cannot zoom now because, again, another user interface annoyance is I would have thought it'd be better that I could zoom in and it just changed from 50 megapixels to 12.5 and told me that, rather than me having to change to 12.5, but that's what we've got. So it needs to be on 12.5. So here is your option. Really the only genuine option they give you of being able to use clarity zoom in photography underwater, because we can't touch the screen. But we don't want that because we can't use videography or 50 megapixel photos. So we want to go back in, we want to hit customize power button, and when not recording, the only thing we want it to be doing is switching shooting modes. Because if I go to put it on switching shooting modes, at least now when I go out and I'm underwater, I can go between my presets, video, photo, etc., pure video, whatever I want in there. But if we go back to photography, we are at our 12.5 and 1x. So we want to still be able to access that. So we've got no way of accessing clarity zoom in video, in photo. In video we do, because what we do is if we go to video and we go back to that general menu, when we've got customized power button, while we're recording, we can have that on clarity zoom. Now, by having clarity zoom whilst recording, I can hit record, and while I'm recording, I hit the power button and it changes between 2 times and 1 times. Happy days. But if I stop, I can now change my presets because obviously it was while recording. I change to photography. If I try and do the same thing, so if I take a photo and then try and change it, it'll say cannot zoom now. I'm going to take a wild guess they just couldn't get enough memory really to be saving a photo and changing the zoom. I don't know why it can't work that way. Maybe in the future they'll update it so it does, but it doesn't at the moment. So right now there is no way of having it so that I can change presets underwater plus do clarity zoom for a photograph underwater. Now the one way around it is before I get into the water, I put the 12.5 on 2 times, close the housing, and I go into the menu and I go to General, go down to Auto Power Off, change it to Never, don't allow it to switch off, go back. As long as this camera does not switch off, that 2 times will stay there. So if you'll see I've got it on 2 times, I can change to video. It's still on 2 times because that's what I left it on. If I press record, hit the power button, go back to 1 times, stop the recording. If I now go back to photography preset, it's still on 2 times. And it will stay there as long as I don't allow the camera to switch off. So now I can go from video to photo to pure video, have other presets, and I'll also want one preset. Here I got 50 megapixel in wide. So now I can take, on the same dive, I can take a 50 megapixel wide shot, I can take a 12.5 pixel zoomed in Clarity 2 zoom, I can take video, and I can make as many presets as I want. But as long as I've put this on 2 times, on a preset with 12.5 megapixels, and I do not let the camera switch off, I can change through as many presets as I like. So that's how I do it. There is one other hassle you need to look at. So that is currently not in underwater mode. Now when you're using underwater mode underwater, when you're using a camera underwater, I highly recommend you use underwater mode. So again, another user face issue is the fact that we can't access this underwater. So we need to put underwater mode on before we do our dive. Now, the same thing will still work. See, I've still got 2 times on, and I can go to video, and that's fine. I can hit record, I can change in video, I can change back, stop recording, I can go over to my photography preset, and it's still on 2 times. Happy days. Same thing as long as you don't let the camera switch off. There is one other thing to watch, and that is if you have underwater mode switch on, currently it has changed over the time, but current firmware underwater mode is ultra. It has changed throughout its time, but it's going to make your camera go back to ultra. Say I've got it on linear, which ironically is what they originally said underwater mode was, and I let underwater mode come on. See how when I changed it, it went back to 1 times? Whenever underwater mode goes on, it went back to ultra. Okay, so I need it to be on ultra because whenever it changes the field of view, it will change it back to 1 times. So if I switch underwater mode back off so I can change the field of view, and I put it 2 times, put it on linear, no problems. But if I put underwater mode on, see it cleared it back to 1 times when it went back to ultra. So you need to make sure that you either put underwater mode on first, so it is in whatever field of view, and then do the 2 times. You'll obviously have to unlock it. It will then stay that way. But if you make the mistake of not putting it on the field of view that you require for underwater mode, and you put underwater mode on, every time it comes around and changes the field of view to ultra, it will change that back to 1 times. But as you can see, I can leave that on 2 times now, go to video, no problem, it's on 1 times. switch to photo, still has 2 times up. It will stay that way as long as the field of view is on ultra, when it's in underwater mode, and as long as the camera doesn't switch off. Now, battery life is a slight problem. It will get through a normal recreational dive without letting the camera switch off, but you are chewing battery by not having the camera go to sleep. And unfortunately, the AcePro 2 underwater is already probably 20 to 30% less than the GoPro 13. It's about what the GoPro Hero 11 is. It's probably because when you're using ultra or underwater mode, it's got a lot of processing going on in that second chip. So it's not the best on batteries. You will definitely not get more than 1 dive. You're going to have to be fairly conservative on how you use it. But that is the only option that I have found. If somebody else has another option, let me know. But the only way that I can access all my presets and do video, photo, pure video, etc., and still have access to go back around. If I go back to photo, then I have a 12.5 megapixel shot at 2 times. And I would always suggest that you leave it in underwater mode, underwater.
Now, I hope that helped. Like I said, I've been putting this off thinking it was going to get updated, and it just hasn't, and I've just been getting more and more and more questions about how we do it as people buy Macromates and want to do macro videography and photography. I can still comfortably say that when you do use this system and you are shooting at 2 times in video, in 4K, and taking clarity photos, this takes the best macro underwater photography and videography of any of the action cameras currently. Supposedly we're going to see a DJI Action 6 in a couple of weeks, so it mightn't be very long before there's something that competes with it. Who knows? But certainly at the moment, when it comes to macro especially, and photography generally underwater, the AcePro 2 is by far the best of the 3 action cameras right now as of early November 2025. So if you've got any questions, please put them in the comments. Like I said, this is as of early November. Firmware gets updated on the Insta360 cameras all the time, so hopefully we'll have a proper solution to this soon. But this is one solution now that I use all the time, so I can go down. I don't want to be stuck to just taking 12.5 megapixel photos on a dive, or just stuck to doing video on a dive. I want to be able to, one of the beautiful advantages of an action camera, or basically anything from a compact down, is I have that ability to do wide, to do, macro, to do video, to do photo, to do all of that on one dive. That is one reason I like low-end cameras, because, over the years there's been nothing more annoying. You spend hours setting up your camera for one thing. I remember I spent days trying to shoot wide-angle stuff, saw nothing but macro stuff. Changed my gear to a macro setup, went down. I'm shooting a nudie break that I'd shot 1,000 times. I was really only doing it because I had nothing better to do. And I turn around and here's a marlin in my face. And it's just clear as day still. I remember looking at the marlin, looking at my camera, shaking my head and just enjoying the marlin swimming off. And I still don't have a photo of a marlin. So, that is one reason I love, your low-end cameras, your compacts, your mobile phones, and your action cameras, because, I still might miss the shot if it's really quick, don't get me wrong, but I have the opportunity to shoot macro, I have the opportunity to shoot wide, I have the opportunity to shoot photos, videos, all on one dive, rather than having to make that decision beforehand whilst dragging around kilos and kilos of equipment that's worth a lot of money. So until the next time, don't forget to keep blowing bubbles, and never forget, the deeper you go, the further you get away from all those idiots.